Can the Utah Jazz pounce on the Sacramento Kings struggles? Is now the time for big game hunting? It's next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It is your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. And we also have a free daily newsletter. It is the ultimate one-stop NBA newsletter. Sign up for free at lockedondaily.com. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL playoffs are here. It's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets. If your $5 bet wins, visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, on today's show, Trends Monday that we do every single Monday has been really interesting to see, to talk about and see, and we've seen a bunch of trends actually take place that matter. The Jazz have played the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight, having won 2 in a row. How did the Cavaliers become the number one team in the NBA? But first, the Sacramento Kings are reeling. This is the first team that is on the verge of the blow-up. It is not working in Sacramento. They were 8-6. They have now lost 9 of their last 14. They are 13-17. They have lost 4 in a row. They lost to Denver by 1. They lost to the Lakers in back-to-back games, and they lost to Indiana last night. They have lost 4 straight at home. Their most recent wins are against New Orleans and Utah, which makes you worry a little bit if you're them. The Utah win was by 43 points, and everybody thought everything was fine, and it is not fine. De'Aaron Fox, their all-star point guard's agent, switched agencies. His new agent is Rich Paul, who is all part of the LeBron world. And Rich Paul went to Sacramento to meet with them to find out whether they were committed to winning. When you're just signed DeMar DeRozan and then your best player asks whether you're committed to winning, I'm not sure that's a great sign for the well-being of team chemistry and the rest. It is not good in Sacramento. And their performance last night, I watched the second half, was that of a team that is discombobulated. If you watch them, we've talked about this. This is why late game watch is so important. We've talked about their struggles in late game watch and how they just don't look right. And right now in the Laker games, they weren't guarding DeMar DeRozan. You know when he gets the ball, it's going to take him a long time to make a play. And so therefore, LeBron just wasn't guarding him. De'Aaron Fox would drive. Sabonis already down there. It was crowded. It's discombobulated. They're the worst pick and roll defensive team in the NBA right now. Mike Brown is trying to talk about it all from a defensive standpoint, but frankly, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter are missing a ton of shots, and it's a little bit of an offensive end too. They are not clutch like they were supposed to. The addition of DeMar DeRozan has made it so that Keegan Murray and Kevin Huerter don't get nearly the amount of actions they used to get. Now they're trying to integrate those actions again. It's a mess. And can the Jazz pounce? Can the Jazz go put together a deal for De'Aaron Fox? Well, this is where things get really complicated, and this is where a rebuild is so hard. So, De'Aaron Fox is going to make $34 million this year. The Jazz could put something together, put a bunch of picks together, and you have to decide. But the problem is that De'Aaron Fox wants to sign an extension, and he's making $37 next year, and he's going to want the max extension. And so the first question you have to ask yourself is De'Aaron Fox a player you're willing to max? And if you're the Utah Jazz, my answer to that is yes, he's about as close to – he's not as good as Donovan, but he's about as close to Donovan as you could get. He can drop 30 in a game. He can carry you. He can do all those things. He's become an elite pick and roll player. You know, he's really, really good. He's now His three-point shooting could be better. He's a career 33% shooter, and that's hindrance in his greatness. But it's hard to get players as good as De'Aaron Fox. The problem is twofold. One is De'Aaron Fox is a free agent in 26-27, and he wants the extension. So you go trade for him right now in a year where you're actually trying to probably get better draft position than standing position. And I don't know what you do with him because he makes you a better team if you get him, and then you're not in very good draft position, which is just jacked up. We'll talk about this later this week. And then the other question is, will he sign the extension? The tricky thing here for the Utah Jazz is when the day comes and you're trying to make the trade to make your team better, the timing has to be right. Our timing might not be right. In other words, you go trade for a De'Aaron Fox right now, put together some sort of package, which maybe has to involve a young player like Keontae and some salaries and a bunch of draft picks to go get De'Aaron Fox. There's two things that are difficult about this. One, what are you trying to do this year? And what are you trying to do next year? And honestly, what are you trying to do the year after? Are you trying to get good right away? And are you good enough with De'Aaron Fox and Lauri Markkanen? The second thing that the problem lies is, are you appealing right now? We're going to get into how the Cavs became the number one team in all of the NBA here as a model for us as Utah Jazz to look at. What's interesting about what the Cavs did is when the timing was right, they went and got Donovan Mitchell in a very similar circumstance, one more year on the deal than De'Aaron Fox, and gambled that they would give him a good enough environment that he'd want to stay. Or they gambled that the marketplace would get restricted so that a player doesn't actually have as many options, and the money was so much better that he'd want to stay. And they hit. Kobe Altman and Sac in Cleveland played the game perfectly, and they hit on it. And now they have Donovan signed. And now they're great. And really, if Donovan asks out at this point, he just would look so terrible he can't do it. So can the Jazz pounce on De'Aaron Fox? Well, one, Fox with 18 months left on his contracts is now in control a little bit. Would he rather go to San Antonio with Victor Wembanyama? Would he rather go to his hometown of Houston with probably some combination of Jalen Green and their young and Jabari Smith and Amon Thompson and their young players? Probably would rather go to Houston as a city if it's his hometown than Salt Lake City, Utah. So one, can the Jazz actually make themselves, can the Jazz get the offer? Yes, the Jazz would have enough stuff to offer Sacramento to get the deal done. But could the Jazz sit across from Rich Paul, the agent of De'Aaron Fox, or for that matter, any other young player that might become available, and say, hey, we're appealing enough right now, you want to be here, or we have a situation right now that's good enough that we're willing to gamble that you're willing to stay the way Cleveland did with Donovan. And if you miss on that, and you gave up a bunch of your assets, and then you have to trade De'Aaron Fox, or De'Aaron Fox leaves in free agency, now that's pretty brutal. And that's what's so complicated and so difficult about the rebuild. The rules with the aprons and all that are making these deals even more and more difficult. But here we have our first implosion. Sacramento's not going to look the same in a month. That's clear. They had their short, brief little run, got knocked out by Steph Curry in a Game 7 and haven't recovered. And made a mistake in the offseason by adding DeMar DeRozan. And it's that hard and that slim and that tough to do. And they were so excited. We could talk about the Sacramento made the same mistake I think Utah has a tendency to make. They're a small little market. And when they get validation from a free agent that I want to be there, they get so excited about it. They forget that, and they get so proud and excited that somebody actually wants to be there, like Derek Favors. And then we forget whether it actually fits. Small markets all across the country have a tendency to do this. So excited somebody wants to come. Nobody's ever wanted to go to Sacramento before till DeMar DeRozan. Right, because DeMar DeRozan had no market, and the Bulls have been trying to trade him for 2 years and couldn't do it. And then all of a sudden, he says he wants to come to Sacramento, and Sacramento's so excited. It's the largest free agent signing they've ever had. First time a star's ever want to be there. It's validation of everything of who we are and where we live and what we do in our city and our team. It's a disaster. we have to make sure we don't fall for that later in our run. That we get that validation and then decide that we're going to go sign a player who actually the rest of the league doesn't want. But Sacramento with De'Aaron Fox. Now, this begs the second question. Is the guy on Sacramento that we should actually be talking about Domantas Sabonis? Sabonis is $40 million this year, $43 next million, $46.7 the year after that, and $50 the year after that. You go trade for Domantas Sabonis, he's signed for 3 years. They're also the worst pick-and-roll defense in the NBA. Should the Jazz try to be pouncing right now in this circumstance where we are on the Sacramento Kings and their struggles? Or Malik Monk? Well, the way Cleveland built the number one team in the NBA might tell us whether it's the right or wrong time. We'll do that next on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross, also located in Logan. The Chevy lineup of trucks, it's amazing. The Silverado and the Colorado. The Silverado is the bigger truck, more power. King Poobah sitting up there, feeling good, riding. When I drove the Silverado, I talked about it like it was like riding in a lazy boy chair over the top of the rest of the world, cruising with all the power in the world. And the Colorado's the zippier, fun truck to have apart, help the neighbors out, do all the fun stuff with. That's the two trucks. The SUV lineup is incredible. The Suburban and the Tahoe, all there at Murdoch Chevy. Stop by, take advantage of the Murdochs for the 85 years in Utah, making sure that you have the no regrets experience, and make sure you check out the amazing Chevy. It's Chevy, it's Americana, it's Murdochs, it's Utah, it's perfect. It's all at Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross, also located in Logan. Stop by either one and get aboard. I'm so excited to tell you about our next sponsor, because truly it brings so much joy and happiness to our family. And that is Starlight Frames. Why do I so well? Because I have Starlight Frames. I've used Starlight Frames in the best of times. I've honestly used it in the worst of times. One of my super close friends had cancer and was on their final months, and we got Starlight Frames, and all of our friends use Starlight Frames for that. So it can be both for the best of times and the worst of times. Right now, for us, it's the best of times because we use it in our family across. Both our kids are in college with Starlight Frames. Grandma and Grandpa in LA are at Starlight Frames. Nana and Papa in the Bay Area have Starlight Frames. It is absolutely fabulous. And the coolest thing to me about Starlight Frames is the kids can collaborate how they want. My daughter can send something just to my son. Yeah, we got an idea what that picture might be. And my son can send something just to my daughter, or they can send it just to the grandparents, or it can go in the big collective thing. It's got all the flexibility you want. If you're missing someone during the holiday seasons, it's a collective way. It's like your own personal private sharing stream. It's absolutely fabulous. The frames are gorgeous. They're the right size. They look good. They don't look ridiculous in your house. It's the best. So for a limited time offer for our fans, get $20 off your next purchase of Skylight Frames when you go to skylightframe.com/NBA. That's Skylight Frame, SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NBA. Get $20 off your purchase now at Skylight Frame/NBA. Get $20 off Skylight Frame at skylightframe-n/NBA. Thanks so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. And we have the daily newsletter, lockedondaily.com. Go sign up for the Jazz newsletter. You get Katie Heindel's national articles Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday exclusively. She's a great writer. You get Mike Schreier's Thursday article, which is very Zach Lowe-esque, which you can't get anymore. That's on Thursdays. Make sure you grab that. And then Josh Lloyd's Fantasy Basketball. It's the ultimate one-stop plus all the links. Tonight, the Jazz play the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the Cleveland Cavaliers are the number one team in all of the NBA right now. And they have transformed under Kenny Atkinson. And I'll get into that in a second because it's really interesting. But I also think in the idea of should the Jazz pounce. Cleveland pounced, and they pounced on us. They got Donovan Mitchell at the perfect time, and it's worked out for them. But Cleveland, prior to that, after they won in the finals and LeBron left in the 18-19 season, they went 19-63. Then they went 19-46. Then they went 22-50, 3 years. Then they got it going at 44-38. Then they went and acquired Donovan. They won 51. They became appealing, and they got Donovan, and then they won 48. They lost. They won a playoff series, decided that wasn't enough, got rid of J.B. Bickerstaff, and it turned over to Kenny Atkinson, and they're 25-4. But let's go back through this a little bit. So they go the 18-19 season, they go 19-63, and then they draft Colin Sexton. That's Jordan Clarkson's on that team here in Cleveland. Then they draft Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton plays 65 games. He's their leading scorer as a rookie, 21 points a game. And they actually, I'm off by 1 year. They draft Colin Sexton. Then they immediately in the next draft, they draft Darius Garland. They kind of basically decide, yeah, Colin's not a point guard. He's probably too short to be. And they draft Darius Garland in the next draft. Colin Sexton was the 8th pick of the 2018 draft. Then they're not very good. They get the 5th pick, and they draft Darius Garland. Then they get the 5th pick again. They draft Isaac Okoro, who's just become a nice rotation player for him. He's getting better shooting threes. And then they draft Evan Mobley in the 2021. And so they've got 3 players, and they decide that Colin Sexton's not their answer. Colin's been hurt. And so they end up with 4 top 10 picks, 3 in a row off being terrible, all top 5 picks. And then they start to add their pieces. In the midst of this, they make a trade for Jared Allen that gives them their other starter. And then they pounce for Donovan Mitchell. They're 4 years into draft picks, 3 years of being terrible at their rebuild, and they decide that they have enough pieces now with Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. I think at that point they knew Isaac Okoro was just a player, not a stud. And they go and get that deal done. They acquired they did a nice job of getting Jared Allen. If I remember correctly, it's on the backside of like the James Harden deal. I kind of snuck around and got that. And Jared Allen's a nice center. He and Walker Kessler are very, very similar. But that's how Cleveland did this, is they lost significantly, less than 20 wins for 3 straight seasons, hit on 2 of their 3 draft picks, and the other one's playable, and then they pounced. I'm not sure we've lost for any seasons yet. So, do we pounce right now for De'Aaron Fox? If we use the Cleveland model, we're 3 years away from pouncing on De'Aaron Fox and creating an environment that's good enough for him to decide that he wants to come and stay. That's what gets tricky. All right, what has Kenny Atkinson done to Cleveland to turn them into a 25-4 team without massive change? Really, with almost no change. One, Evan Mobley's just gotten older and better. Again, to this kind of point of we're trying to learn what a rebuild is and how a rebuild works, and you look at what the Cleveland Cavaliers have done, Evan Mobley's now in his 4th year and thriving. And Darius Garland's in his 6th year and thriving. But that's the time it takes. That's the time it takes. I want to pounce now, too. That's my instinct, too, is to say, let's go. But maybe you need your Darius Garland 5th pick of an NBA draft and give him the time. He was an all-star by his 3rd year in 21-22, and then he's just gotten better and better and having an incredibly efficient year this year. Shooting percentages way up all across the board. He's in controlling the team. And Evan Mobley's in his 4th year, and at one point last year felt like a disappointment, but some patience, and he's now not statistically wildly different, though he is shooting the 3 better. You can feel it, though, when you watch him. His impact is massive. They allow the fewest shots in the league at the rim with he and Jared Allen. They're beautifully built, and they've just pieced everything together around them. So what has Kenny Atkinson done that took this team? One, you have the natural maturity of his players. But some of this is really interesting. They're playing faster. And the answer that most people think when you say a team is playing faster, that means they're running. Well, they're actually not. The way they're playing faster is they're throwing fewer passes, and their time in the half court is less. What? So they chart when a team crosses half court. And the Cleveland Cavaliers are crossing half court at the exact same time as they did a year ago. However, they're 0.3 seconds, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, faster into their first action. So when they do cross half court, they immediately get into something. And each of their possessions are a possession shorter. That's a big deal. They also have the fewest possessions in a short clock of any team in the NBA. So they've got 12 less handoffs. They've eliminated ball screens from their offense. They've gone from 59 to 31s to off-ball screens. They run the exact same amount of picks. They drive a little bit more. They have no more transition off offensive rebounds than they did a year ago. They're in the half court, and they're playing quicker. And their quality of shots is way up, 1.2 percentage points up. These are big numbers. I know 1 second sounds like not very much, but when you look at the ranking, these are big changes. So this is really interesting. The impact of Kenny Atkinson and what he's done on this team is that once they come across half court, they're quicker and faster into their actions, more immediate, coming right at you, hitting you hard, and playing faster in the half court. In fact, they spend the third least amount of time of any team in the NBA once they cross half court. Atlanta with Trae Young is the lowest amount of time in the NBA. Once they get in the half court, they're the lowest. The Cleveland is taking 7.44 seconds from first action to end of possession. And the only teams that are faster are Atlanta and Memphis. Memphis is doing some really interesting things right now. They're 9.55 seconds from the time they cross half court to getting end of possession. Only Atlanta and Chicago is faster. Or are faster. So that's really the change they've made. I'm interested to ask Kenny Atkinson about it today at the presser. But that's what the Cavaliers have done. They're not playing more possession off rebounds. They're not getting across half court faster. They're playing faster once they're in the half court. Quicker, shorter possessions. We'll find out what Kenny Atkinson tells about that. Trends Monday is next on Locked on Jazz. Who's hot? Who's not? What can we learn from it? It's all coming up here on Locked on Jazz. Thanks so much for tuning in to Locked on Jazz today. We greatly appreciate today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of Locked On, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. NFL playoffs are right around the corner, about to be underway. They are almost here. The college football playoffs are here. And it's not too late to get in on the great action as well at America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up the W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown or how many points each team will score. You can decide first touchdown is the way to go. The guys in Cleveland here are all lamenting. Last night, a guy fumbled at the 1-yard line, and they could have won that. So visit FanDuel.com to join. That's FanDuel.com for your chance. $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. FanDuel Sportsbook line tonight for the Jazz, and the Jazz have yet to be favored in any game all year, by the way. And we certainly aren't to be tonight. Cleveland is a 14-point favorite tonight, and I was looking at this earlier. Cleveland is 10-3 at covering this year when they have a 9.5-point spread or more. So they have just been hammering the lower. When they have a big spread, they've been just hammering people. Today's show is also brought to you by Built. This is cool. All right, so Built Rewards. If you're a renter, you need to listen up. This is like your rewards card for renters. You can earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks and completely free to join. Earn valuable Built points on your rent, everyday spending at no extra cost. Redeem points towards flights, hotel stays, even future rent payments with over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in the program. The possibilities are endless. Access unique experiences that are exclusive to Bilt members. BILT. It gives you an opportunity to take advantage of paying rent the same way you do everything else. Start earning points on rent when you're already paying by going to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Seems pretty simple, basic, straightforward, and you get a lot for it. Make sure you use our link so they know who sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today at joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Free, available on all podcasting apps and the rest. All right, every Monday, we like to look at the trends of the league. We do late game watch and trends, so we kind of have an idea. By the way, did you guys hear Anthony Edwards complain about lack of space? How much have we been talking about that on late game watch? I'll try to get a late game. I don't know. Tomorrow, I do not think I'm going to have a show. I think I'm going to take Christmas Eve because we travel on Christmas Day. So I'll be back with you either with a special Christmas edition or the 26th, and then we'll be back up and rolling like normal. All right, we like to look at the last 10 games first, and then we look at the last 2 weeks is the way we do the watch or the Trends Monday. The hottest team in the NBA is your Cleveland Cavaliers, who will be playing tonight, followed by Oklahoma City, then Memphis. Memphis is playing 107 possessions a game right now. The next closest in the league is Denver at 104. The league average is 99, which is really fast, but 107 is a lot. New York is the fourth best team in the league right now. Boston is fifth. Dallas is sixth. Denver is seventh. This year's interesting. Minnesota, who everyone thinks is struggling, Anthony Edwards losing it, is the eighth best team recently. Sacramento, who everyone thinks is struggling, is the 11th best because they still have that Jazz game in there. Teams that are on the bottom: Washington, Portland, New Orleans, Utah, Charlotte, Brooklyn, and the Golden State Warriors. That's not supposed to be there. Top offensive team over the last 10 games is Dallas at almost 120 point. Memphis, Cleveland, Boston, Phoenix Suns, and then Denver and Sacramento. Teams that are having a hard time scoring right now are the Lakers, have the worst offense in the NBA over the last 10 games. Washington is 29th. Minnesota is 28th. That's why it feels like such a struggle. Golden State is 27th. Then Brooklyn and the Pelicans. Jazz are 18th, by the way, offensively. Will really does an incredible job of getting our offense better. Defense over the last 10 games, Minnesota is number 1. Oklahoma City is number 2. The Knicks are number 3. So Tom Thibodeau has figured out how with Karl-Anthony Towns to play defense, and that team is now rolling. Cleveland is 5. Memphis is 6. There have been some real big blowouts recently that skew some of these numbers. Boston is the 6th best team, and the Clippers are actually the 7th best defensive team. Teams that are not defending: Portland, Utah, Phoenix, Detroit, New Orleans, and the Wizards. So quick takeaway from this, I would say Memphis is still the story. New York is really coming together. Minnesota and Sacramento are not as desperate as they feel. The Minnesota discomfort is because they can't score, and the Lakers being last in the league offensively is certainly interesting. So that would be my quick take on what matters on what I just read to you there. Let's go to the last 2 weeks and see what the more immediate trends are and see what they tell us. We'll have some big blowouts. Memphis' massive win over Golden State will show up here. Cleveland is won 4 straight. Their differential is plus 29 in the last 2 weeks. Not a lot of games in here with the NBA Cup. Memphis is 2nd. Indiana is 3rd. So interesting to keep an eye on whether they've turned the corner or not. Boston is 4th. New York 5th. Oklahoma City 6th. Denver 7th as they get healthy. Teams that are really struggling: Brooklyn, Golden State, Charlotte, Portland, New Orleans. We're about 22nd. Over the last 2 weeks, we're the 9th best offense in the league. Cleveland is the number 1 offense at 130. Wow. And then Phoenix is at 123. I mean, not even close. Indiana, Memphis, Dallas. and Denver. Teams that can't score right now. Minnesota's last in the NBA the last 4 games. That's why you have Anthony Edwards complaining. Lakers are 29th offensively. Brooklyn, Charlotte, and then Sacramento over the last 5 games is now down to 26th. When you can't score, when NBA players feel like they can't score and have no space and don't feel good, that's when these things fall apart. Because that's really what everyone's ego is based on. Atlanta suddenly is having a hard time scoring as well. Defensive teams, best in the league. Lakers, number 1 defense over the last 2 weeks. Boston, then Memphis, Cleveland, Oklahoma City, and Indiana. Teams not defending: Phoenix, Golden State, Portland, Brooklyn, and Utah. A lot of focus on Sacramento and Minnesota right now. Maybe there should be a lot of focus on Golden State because those numbers were pretty daunting and do not look particularly good. That is Locked on Jazz today. Trends Monday. Should the Jazz pounce on De'Aaron Fox? Or is Domantas Sabonis the better answer? Put those in the comment section. If you've not subscribed or followed the show, please do so already on any podcasting app or on YouTube. Hit the bell button on YouTube to be notified when we launch a program. Plus, if you follow me on any of the socials, it's DLocke09 on Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and TikTok. So please, and Snapchat, DLocke09. So please follow me on whatever social you prefer to do your business on and sign up for our daily newsletter at LockedOnDaily.com. Thanks so much for being a part of the program on video. We will now send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel, Locked On NBA. On audio, make sure you check out Locked On NBA for the game night after all the games, every night, every game, every night.